6:30, we might as well start our meeting.
Yes.
Please join me for the May 20th, 2021 Charter Revision and Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Linda Stratton's, Virginia San Pietro.
Jude Gagnon. All right, so we've got to approve the minutes of the Charter Revision Special Meeting from last Thursday, May 13th, 2021. Has everyone had a chance to read the minutes?
I move to approve. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Old business. Actually, we're just going to do that into new business because we've got our draft report tonight. Do you want a copy, Tom?
Sure.
It's all revised for what we're going to have before we, oh, there you go.
That's right.
Before we send it to anyone else. Thanks for coming. Does anyone have you had a chance, you haven't had a chance to look at this copy, but does anyone have any, I want to go through it, let's go through each one. Yeah. Section 2, 3A. Shall the date of the annual town meeting be changed to take place after the audit report is finished, but no later than the end of February? Does anyone have any problems with that? Section 2.4b. Shall the percentage of eligible electors casting ballots at a referendum be changed from 25% to 10%? We discussed.
We talked about that.
That was the best. We discussed that with Irene, also. No problems with that. Section 2.4d. This is what Kevin formulated for that one because I didn't know how to word it. He's adding that to the capital in 2.4d. In preparing and presenting the town budget, the Board of Finance will include the capital budget, a 5-year plan, and will include provisions for voting on a capital improvement program.
I have a question on that one with the referendum. You said 25%. Is this for the town meetings that you're talking about? You have to have 25 people?
Well, we discussed.
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
It's for budget vote to whether to go to referendum or not. I believe the percentage. I look it up in the charter and read it to her.
Yeah,
Was there something like that in the charter before?
yes.
Oh, okay. I'm confused then. All right.
It is actually, you don't have a charter with you?
I don't have it.
Oh, I was going to get some copies.
That's okay.
Yeah, why don't you read it, Jim?
It says, should the annual or other town budget referendums fail to adopt the budget as provided in subsection C below, another referendum shall be held within 14 days thereafter until final approval is given. And right now it's written, however, if less than 25% of the eligible electors cast ballot at the referendum, then all subsequent balloting on the budget shall be at a town meeting.
So
So you're changing that part to, okay.
We're making it,
All right.
less.
25% to 10%. I forgot the figures. We had, Irene gave us some figures.
Okay. I was confused. I thought.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Okay, so that's,
And now we're on section 2.4d, which I think, Kevin, could you explain that one more time? He worded it for us, so. Do you want a copy? Anyone want a copy of these? The draft report? I don't think I made enough.
Okay.
All right, yeah, go ahead.
The capital budget was something that had no real definition or meaning in my mind, because when you vote on the other two questions, it tells you right off the bat, if either one fails, you have to redraft and actually re-vote on it. There was some work on that before. It was different versions of it in the past few years of charter revisions. But this is an item where the capital budget shall be provided as a question to approve or reject as part of the annual town budget referendum or town budget meeting. Only if rejected shall it be subject to revision and subsequent balloting procedures as stated in subsection B of this section. So it ties it back into having meaning. If we don't do our due diligence, say hypothetical, we don't put information out there that could lead us to a grant, and there's nothing there saying we've got our 5-year capital, we could lose out on the opportunity to get a grant based on some of the grant applications. So we try to do the best we can with it, but we could have somebody in the audience who says the week before, hey, look, I know that we could do this other project over here in Mohegan. How come we don't talk about putting that out there to put it onto the 5-year capital? And so we do accept and understand those options that might be available, but it's good to have that as something that you actually need to vote on and approve. If it doesn't get approval, as of right now, it doesn't mean anything. You can just say, okay, it failed, and you go on to your next. So.
And that's why things wind up on the list forever, like heating systems for schools.
Yep, that's part of it, absolutely. We need to do a better job as a town. I say that on whole, Board of Education, the town selectmen, and the Board of Finance, on making sure we check and work with each other to say, these are the things we need. I think we've heard of like Jenny, last time we talked about it, over 20 years of trying to come up with a plan to put heating systems into something that should have been put in properly years ago. It's been over 20 years. So while it's there on the list, that's great, and we could apply for grants for it all that time. If we forget to put something out there, there could be an opportunity where we're not going to be able to apply for a grant because of that. So that's something that we need to scrutinize every year and try to come up with some better plans of grant application possibilities. So that's why I think it needs to be there as a capital budget to be even voted down, to do a rework on it. Sometimes you'll notice that it looks like there's, I don't know, maybe $7 or $8 million worth of items in there. And you're never going to get to it all. There's just not enough money in your, never mind the fund balance, but you also don't want to drain all of that just to do these items. So it's a matter of, that's why there's a 5-year capital, you kind of plan those out. But you can't forget things, and you have to be doing your due diligence all along. Someone may say, I don't want to have, I don't know, the Quinnebog Valley Trail in there. And that might be a sticking point for some people saying, I don't want that, I'd rather have something else. And they could conceivably vote it down based on that.
Okay, thank you.
And by the way, any of these that we were talking about and coming forward with, if you're comfortable with it, we can prepare it for the attorneys to look at so they can help us with the wording to make sure it's proper.
That's great. Very important.
Many of us like section 2.5b, that would be the, shall the dollar amount of non-budgeted appropriations be updated from 10,000 to 50,000 minimum, and from 50,000 to 100,000 maximum before a town meeting is needed.
Yes.
And then we added section 2.5d,
Because,
right? I wrote that up as a separate one, because it's really hard to,
Incorporate all of them at once.
and then it could be somebody, I don't know if anybody would really separate them out, but if you're gonna raise one, you might as well raise the other one. Section 2.5d, shall the minimum dollar amount for shared grants be increased from 10,000 to 50,000 before a town meeting is needed?
And what is the definition of a shared grant, if we're sharing with another town?
Nope, but a shared financing opportunity. So they would say it's a matched grant.
Like the annex was 10,000, and then they had a grant for 10,000 in a study. Yeah. On that, right? Section 3.4, shall changes to the voting districts and polling places for each vote be determined upon recommendation of the registrars by the Board of Selectmen. So when they changed, in 2018, they changed the polling places and voting districts could be changed, but there was no way to do
Who
it.
did?
Who was doing it? And we decided, yes,
Sorry.
no, go ahead.
Madam Chair.
That's all right. This is
I
fine.
wanted to share with you some input that I received about this. So a resident saw the article in the paper, and they were concerned about not being able to vote in Warrigan because they don't have a vehicle, and they normally would walk to the polling place. So I thought about it for a second. I replied back to them, and I said, would it be something that you would consider as an option if you were offered a ride to the polls instead? Because there are going to be those situations where we do
Sure.
need that. And the person replied back immediately, yes, of course.
Right.
So I think that there's going to be situations like that all through this, change or process. So I think in the past, I think everybody's been saying, if you need a ride, let me know, and we'll see if we can get you.
Yeah, Gary, I thought you always did that.
Yep.
And I liked adding the registrars in there because after talking with Irene, there were certain circumstances with each vote that you may or may not need to have all the polling places open. That was pretty much what we,
Right. I do like the definition as to who and by what recommendation. That way you have a very straightforward how it gets processed.
Yeah, it's very clear. The way it's written.
so we'll see if we agreed on.
Yeah, I just was
Okay.
like, the thing the article that was in the paper, it made it sound like it would be switching around. Like sometimes all 4 polling places would be open,
Yeah.
and then for another
Right.
vote, they wouldn't be, and I just thought that was kind of confusing for people.
Mhm.
So,
The article.
Right.
yeah, in the
I
article.
think this
yeah.
situation, like the last time we had just a few people coming to the polls, we talked about that earlier, and it might be something that, under recommendation of, this is going to be a very small count, and we might be able to save some money by having it, but putting it to the press to really let people understand and know that this is what's going to happen way ahead of time, as soon as you know this is what we're going to do, would be very helpful. And it's still going to confuse people no matter what.
And, right.
Change is different, and
Right, because we had talked about, changing, like Moosop and Warrigan, even at Moosop and Central Village coming to Plainfield to vote, just not, having the 2 places for now,
Right.
in case, we might get a high school vote one time, I don't know.
Some towns do that.
I think Killingley is one of them that
Do they do it
go
at the
to
high
high school.
The one thing I don't know if I had brought up the other week about the referendums, like if we do only one location, I always said if we did it in one location, I would feel that have that referendum start at 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., not just the noon to, because that way people won't complain as much if it's in one place, but they'll have a longer time,
Sure.
I
Go in there when there's less people at certain times too. if we
Right.
can-
But not every, if it's in every location, I don't know if that would make it too confusing to the people or how,
So
but.
it will be on, if this passes, it would be on the recommendation of the registrars for each.
But I just feel it's something to try, and what you were saying about a ride, I just wrote myself a note that maybe in November, I want to say one time we kind of questioned how many people walk, they never had any walkers come to the polling place. So I'm thinking in November, maybe I'll have them just watch to see if people walk or ride, especially Warrigan.
And I'll get with you after to let you know who this person is, that way they can watch for that person.
Okay, but I mean, we could, they can kind of keep an eye out too.
Yeah.
That's something we could bring up next November too, to watch.
Yes.
And on her point, if you're going to make the referendum from 6 to 8,
Right?
that's another charter change,
I know it is.
somehow.
Would it be another charter thing?
Yeah,
Because I think-
it's in the charter that
It is,
referendum is
it's
from
right.
12
We were
to
gonna put
8.
that,
We were gonna do that,
That's
right.
we talked about putting that on. How come we didn't?
Say, Irene was here and she thought it would be too long a day for
And too expensive.
300 people at a referendum.
Right, 2-4A.
But it would be one location.
Yeah. Yeah, but this last one was 300 people.
Right,
Still,
I know.
it would have been a long, dragged-out day for them, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
But
what she
in
was
one
thinking.
location, you have that many people coming through,
You can do shifts.
it really,
Yeah.
I
So-
don't know if that's somehow worded in there or just,
Yeah, it was
we
2-4A.
can do it another time.
The referendum,
What do you think?
Let's see how this works, maybe, and change it another time.
Okay.
I don't know.
Because it can be, well, it can be changed by the Board of
By the Board of
Selectmen,
Selectmen.
right? I mean,
I'd have to check with legal counsel on
okay,
times.
okay.
whether it
Time.
would have to first be changed again in the charter.
Yeah, the
before-
charter says it's noon to 8,
Noon
and
to
that's,
8, then we have to change
Yeah.
it. So, yeah.
Do we want to, or do we want to wait? See how this goes with, it's a good, you know, it's a
Hey,
good thought, that's why we're having these.
I have a question of the first selectman. Do you foresee another charter revision in the near future?
absolutely,
Within a year or two, or?
absolutely.
Oh, there you go.
See more things.
So you could do it in the next one.
What do you think?
As I spoke to the attorney about 9 months ago, 10 months ago now, because he was talking about our charter, and he says there are a lot of changes that can be made in there.
Yeah.
So this is a good start, and then continue on from there. We talked about,
Right.
like I said, about 9 months ago about that. So,
If you want, like the last one, if you want to keep it limited still, the last one's, I wouldn't say is a priority
Which one?
Oh,
for the steps and in-laws and
2D.
over saving money at the polls. I mean, that's more important.
Ethical issue.
So, you could word that one that the referendum would be from noon to 8 unless it's in one polling place, where it would be from 6 to 8 or something like that.
Now, what number is that again?
It's 24A, and it's right in the middle. It says, the polls for a referendum shall be open from noon to 8. It's like right in the middle of 24A.
Oh, yes, I see.
Yeah. Well, we could add a question. I mean, we could still add a question.
Yeah, in 2018, it was 9 questions.
I know, I think.
We had the room?
I think,
We had the room on the ballot?
Exactly.
I know, and I want
Not
everybody
in this time.
voting
Yeah.
to
Right.
possibly
Yeah.
understand
Yeah.
what's going on.
5, 6, 8,
That's a lot.
Yeah, let's
I
wait.
think that's-
We're gonna,
Yeah.
I feel, do you feel we
Can we-
should?
Are we going to have another public hearing?
Yes. June
Okay.
3rd.
All right. So that, I think that would be important
Okay.
too.
And the next one, section 4(1)B, shall the Board of Finance increase from 6 regular members to 7?
Yes.
You're okay with
I'm
that?
fine with that. You have a tie. It's
and in
not-
speaking with one of the Board of Finance members, they wanted to keep it at 6 because I guess what his comment was, it was the chairperson only votes if there's a tie. The problem with that thought is the math.
Right.
You've got 3 people yay, 2 people nay. That's not a tie. So in my opinion, though, every member should vote, period.
Right.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I thought.
I think he thought the chair didn't vote unless it was a tie.
When we were on the Board of Education, we had a 3 to 3, and that's when the chair would actually cast that final vote.
Right.
Yeah,
But that means that that person gets to vote.
right.
So 7 makes it so that no matter what, you're going to not have a tie.
Right. So you're okay with that?
Yeah.
And if that passed, it would mean in
We have to
November?
coordinate how we put the next person on with a special election.
Right.
Okay, and the ethics question, section 9(2)D, shall the appointment to a position of financial gain be modified to include steps, in-laws, and partners? We're all set with that one?
I don't think it's the most important one we're putting.
I know, it's
Yeah,
not.
but,
But we still have the
Yes.
ethics commission
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
And,
6, 7.
families have changed.
yeah.
And that would limit it. I know, I had to add that
I
other
know.
one because I couldn't,
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't have to, but I felt
No,
it
but
was
it's-
important.
Yeah, I don't see how you could put it in with the other one.
Right,
The two
yeah,
might be-
because some, it's a yes, no question.
Yeah, so.
Oh, we all
request that we review.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That was the final thing, and public comment. Is there any more public comment? I let you just chime in.
Just briefly, you mentioned it already, and I think it's a good idea. You talked about, you actually said, okay, this one may not be the most important, which could lead up to, you have two public hearings, one with your commission and one with the Board of Selectmen. And you never know when someone's going to come up and say, okay, I think this is the most important thing that's not on your list, and they'll give you the good reason why. That gives you an opportunity to then say, yeah, we can put that in there, and if there's something else that's a little lower, you might now say, okay, we can replace it. We'll start looking at spacing. If you notice the way you phrase these, as long as they're okay with the attorney, I think the longest one you have there is 2,4-D.
That's yours, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
So that's the other thing we have to start doing is looking at spacing.
okay.
So I would
Fit it in?
I would say that I can bring this now to the attorney to start reviewing
Okay.
for wording, meaning, and proper language, and that way you'll have a head start on that part of it.
I'm looking at,
I know, I just got mine out too, but there's one.
and what I was hoping that we could put this in with the minutes so that people can look at it and see what's going to be.
Now that you've motioned it, yes.
Okay. Do we have to make a motion to do
You
it?
already did.
Oh, by doing that,
Yep,
that's
that's
okay
your
for
draft
Ginny?
report, and that will be attached to your minutes.
Okay, great. I wanted to make sure you've got a copy of it. Okay. Tom, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was just going to let you know that I did mention to some of the people who I think are against adding another member of the Board of Finance, I mentioned that they do have an opportunity for a public hearing. That's the whole idea of
Right,
public
that's
hearing, is
right.
people to come out and either say what they're for, what they have issues with, what they would like to see changed. And I know that we haven't been getting too many people coming out to the public hearing, so I recommended to them that they do if they're so adamantly against it. And me
Right.
personally, as the chair of the Board of Finance, I think that there could be some benefit to having another member besides the whole not making sense with the tie breaking. I actually, in the past year, have struggled getting a quorum a couple of times. I had to cancel one
Another
meeting because I didn't have a quorum.
Right.
So that's kind of the interesting thing, is that some people who may be on the board or against it, they themselves, sometimes don't always make it to the meeting. So I look at it that way, as having another member. Maybe that person could be a very active one and won't ever miss a meeting, and that would be great, because then I'd be, not having to worry about whether or not we make a quorum. So I think there's benefits to it.
Okay. Well,
Even with two alternates, there's still,
Yeah, because even a lot of times the alternates, one of them works late, so he can't make it half the time, and the other one has got other things going on at home, so
Yeah.
a lot of times they can't make it
it's
either.
always, like,
Great.
I believe though, Tom, the quorum is the same for
Yeah.
6 as it is 7.
Yeah.
It's still 4 members.
Right. But what it can make a difference of is the individuals. Everybody's different as far as, their availability, their circumstances, things like that. So we never know who, if it was to go through, who may occupy it, but who knows? Maybe they'll never miss a meeting. Maybe they'll be committed, and dedicated to that.
That would be
position.
nice.
Some people take, their volunteerism very seriously. Others, it's just, they do it when they feel like it. So.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.